Hello and welcome. We have Rod Steele today. We are going to speak about the humanitarian. We are going to speak about the humanitarian project programs, revaluation updates for the currencies. We are going to go into the background of Rod Steele, explaining how we got all into this. Just before we begin, guys, subscribe to my BitChute channel because I'm banned on YouTube for one more week. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And also to my landing page, nicholasveniamin.com. Rod, how are you? And where do we begin with your background?
I'm doing great, Nicholas. And just let me say off the bat, we've never actually, this is our first show together, and hopefully it may not be the last, but I am just so impressed with you. I mean, I know a little bit about your background, your law affiliations and so forth, and the ethics that took you out of that. And I have to applaud you for that and respect you for that. That's tremendous, because most people that go into law do it for the money. I mean, they can't be doing it because it's fun. And so, for you to walk away from all that is very, I respect that tremendously. I'm really impressed. You're a top-notch shelf guy, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And glad to call you a friend, even though we've never met. But I think there's going to be a lot of activity in Texas in the future, and I think you're going to be a part of it. And so hopefully, Scott McKay and I are only 25, 30 miles apart. And so hopefully we can all get together one day.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much. I would love to. I've been thinking about the humanitarian projects for a long time. I think we have fascinating technologies that are going to, come to light, because I understand over 6,000 patents have been suppressed from the public. This is one of the Nasara Jasara key points that we are touching on right now. And they're going to be available for, people like me and you, and many of the listeners who will be participating in the revaluations, who will be able to have access to buy these copyrights and then, put them in our communities where they have been deprived from our communities for many decades.
Well, yeah, about for those in Texas and like myself, the word he was saying was patents. Anyway.
Patents, yeah.
And so about half those are high tech, and the other half are medically related. And, we've had stuff shelved by big pharma for decades. A lot of this stuff has been around, and it's just been suppressed. And, there are available cures for some forms, I won't say all, but some forms of cancer, heart disease, AIDS. And of course, we know the beds are going to play a huge role in this. And Charlie went into that on his show last Saturday about the 3 different types of med beds. I believe the first one he mentioned was actually limb regenerating. Uh-huh. The second one dealt with Alzheimer's, I forget. But anyway, the third one was, that's a joke, is more on my interest. And that one's the one that does help with the heart disease, the cancer, the AIDS. And the one I'm really pro about is taking generations of age off of you. And I look forward to that very strongly. And I told him, I said, just tell me where it is, sign me up, and I'm there. So maybe they can bring me back so I look as good as you.
Well, I moisturize as much as I can. I don't mind the gray hair. It's getting there, but
Only my stylist knows for sure. All right. So where did I get the people say, where does this guy come from? I have a BBA in management marketing and master's in management and human relations. I spent over 35 years in the financial services industry. I started as a rookie rep in one of the world's largest life insurance and investment firms. I went on quickly to become a district manager, a regional manager, and a regional vice president. I had about 4 offices in the Texas area. And with over 100 agents that I dealt with, I was one of the consistently leading individuals in the state for the company. And was number 2 in sales and number 1 in management recruiting. And the only way that I wasn't number 1 in sales is because I didn't pressure people to buy stuff that ended up falling off the books like the number 1 guy did. So my ethics were much similar to yours in the law field. I would rather provide people what they really need and get something they're going to keep and last, and that's in their best interest. And that's what I did. And we still did pretty well, just doing it the right way. And I've still got people with their stuff on the books they've had for over 20 years. I've only paid one death claim in my entire life. And sadly, that was to a 10-year-old, parents of a 10-year-old child. We always talked about putting death benefit riders on the children. A lot of people are at odds with that, but it's very important. And this particular child was the child of foster parents. They worked at a foster home, and the facility was not up to par. There just wasn't enough money. One of the things I look forward to with the Nasara Jasara thing is organizations like this that are already there and in place. We don't need to start a bunch of new ones. We can, and it will, but there's so many good ones already in place right now, Nick, that are seriously underfunded. And that was the case with this particular facility where he was. And they had a tank, a pond, whatever you want to call it, on the properties that the cows, drank from. But it also had a pier going out over it so you could fish. And this child went out there and jumped in the water right at dusk. And they hadn't maintained the electrical lines properly, and they weren't insulated. They'd been eaten away due to age in the water. And the automatic sensors kicked on the lights right when he went in the water, and he was electrocuted. And so that was a very sad time. That happened right after I was regional manager at that point, but I hadn't been in the business that long. I rose pretty fast. And so that still sticks with me to this day. And some of the things I want to help with are, the trafficking situation. I don't know what it is there where you are, but I know it's bad. Here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's over 400 women and children every month that are trafficked through Dallas, and they don't even record what's going on in Fort Worth. And so they're underfunded. They don't have nearly enough to help support the organizations in place, but they need more money. And there's also organizations that help with my ultra conservatives may be upset with this, but I think Christ loves everybody. And there's LGBT kids that are kicked out by their parents every day all over the country. They're homeless. They have nowhere to go and nowhere to turn, and usually end up in drug situations because of it. There are organizations that help with that. And I'd like to see some of my funding go towards supporting housing for those kids, because it's not their fault. And so anyway, I went on to establish my own firm after that, and did quite well for a number of years. Unfortunately, I had a big heart and not a lot of common sense. I didn't collateralize loans well enough, and I reached out and tried to help people that had already been turned down by others. And unfortunately, the economy got in the way too, and it took them down and took me down with it. And so I've kind of like been in a recovery process, hoping this happens really soon and makes up for all of that. But in that process, I met people all over the world. And that's when I was introduced by friends to the, they were originally had specific trade names. Each group did. I'm not going to go into those. I was told, and I used to do international conference calls, Nick, just like you're doing, except we didn't have the technology that you've got today. And so I was doing conference calls live on the phone all over the world, discussing what was going on with the programs and the introduction of NASARA. I was in on the beginning of NASARA. When you see those old pictures of mobile billboard trucks driving around the Capitol, I was in on the development and production of that. And they were trying to get it done then. And of course, it was just about to happen. And I don't know if people know this or not, but the programs were going to be released. And they were now labeled as prosperity programs, and they're supposedly all going to be funded through Wells Fargo here in the United States when the currencies are, people always know when they are. Originally, we were supposed to get it right before the currencies, and now they say it's all going to be a shotgun simultaneous event. And they want us in first because the liquidity from that's going to help out with a lot of the NASARA JASARA affairs. And so anyway, I was introduced to that by people on the call who were friends of mine. And
Hmm.
I got involved and I started buying shares. Oh, goodness, mid 90s. And that went on through 2001, I guess. Um, a lot of the people that were involved have passed or eliminated, but the programs managed to survive. And so, I mean, this is a lot more involved than people realize. You know, they now they can jump on the internet and fire off some kind of negative comment, and I'm sure I've seen what they say to you and Charlie, and I see what they say to me, and they don't even know what they're talking about. And, you know, and it's really frustrating, but you just have to kind of slough it off. And I had a point and I missed it. It's where was I going with it? The programs were developed and ready to go. That was all stopped cold in 2000. Well, 9/11 caused it. They were going to be announced that day, and NSAR was going to be announced that day, and it was stifled, and it's been stifled ever since. They've started putting things back together and working in the background. Of course, you know where we are today, and I think we're about there.
Hmm. Right. So, what kind of involvement do you have with Jisara, and the currencies?
I haven't gotten back in an active participation like I was. That was all. A lot of that was introduced. There was a person called Dove of Oneness. If you go back and research Nasara a long time ago, you'll find a lot of documents that were put out by her. And I've got some I found laying here right on my table if people wanted to go into it. And she goes into the entire history of how that began, and she's since passed. But she was doing what Charlie's doing back then, and carried the torch for a long time. Was part of was reporting back when Clinton was talking about Bill, was under military pressure to go ahead and sign in 92 the NSAR into place, and it's never been revealed, and you can't find it. And so
Hmm.
people say it doesn't exist. But whatever it was, it's that and a whole lot more is about to come into fruition now.
When you say now, how soon? Because what I think is, I find it very difficult for this to happen under a Biden presidency. Not because that it can't happen under a Biden presidency,
Mm-hmm.
but more because why should the credit be why should the credit go to Biden? Because that's how the Dems would do it. So what I would say is Trump has to come in, he has to be reinstated in order for these things to happen under a under a Trump presidency. Now, under a Biden presidency, I would suspect that we're waiting for a stock market crash, exactly what Trump predicted. What do you have to say about that?
I was always told that there would be one. I don't know if it's going to be as harsh. You know, they were originally saying it was going to be 1933 on steroids. I don't know that it'll be that bad, but there's got to be an adjustment. You know, I've been warning people to get out for a long time, and if you're not a crook, you're probably not there. There are people making money. I know there's guys on the internet that show how to go about doing that. That's never something I've been excited about because the whole thing is so manipulated and controlled by the guys on Wall Street. You know, the whole GameStop thing is a perfect example of that. And the same thing happened with it wasn't a program, it was a diamond stock called CMKX that was back in the 90s. And that's one of the programs that got shafted. But it was actual stock, and those people were robbed back then, just like GameStop was, same thing. And they're still been fighting in the courts for years trying to get that funded. And it will be released at the same time the programs and the currencies all go out. When I say now, I'm talking about in the period that we are in currently. I can go into some of the updates that I've got. Long story short, Texas snowstorm and the rest of the country, 50 million people were without power here in the United States, Nick. Over a million Texans just in the local area. And didn't move my car from Saturday night. I came back in from Keller. It started sleeting, and I got in the garage, and then by the next morning it started snowing. And that's the problem in Texas. People say y'all can't drive in Texas. What they don't realize is it ices here first, and then it snows on top of it. And so you can't see the ice, and even the stuff that is exposed is black ice, and you can't see that either. And that's what caused a 133 car pileup on our I-35 interstate that made nationwide news. So we had inability to move for a solid week. And Texas is one of the lead states for this to all go out. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it in the past. Iraq was dreamed that the currency, Iraq, you got to know, is we're jumping from programs over to currency. But most of the people that I get messages from aren't in the programs anyway, and they're new, and they do have some of the currencies. And so it's probably key, if they're not aware of it, that Iraq is the linchpin for all the other currencies going. And so as soon as they go, it'll be a domino effect, and everything else will go similarly at the same time.
Wow.
Now, that was all created and masterminded here in Texas. The servers that release the RV for Iraq are in Houston. And so it's always been controlled from here. And so all of this stuff that you're hearing in the articles up until last week from Iraq was basic BS. They were following a narrative that our Treasury Department was giving them. And it's like, they've had this thing figured for a long time. They've even tried to RV many times, and we pulled the plug. We've been within literal 10 minutes before of it happening, and Treasury said no. And so the ruling on that, it has nothing to do with Iraq. They can have all the political meetings and votes they want to. This thing's done over there. It's been done for a long time since all the new regime got put in.
So sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just saying that they're finally admitted publicly in their Iraq national newspaper, which only goes out on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and it's highly expected that the RV will be announced on one of those days. Now, do they have the right to publish a special publication? Absolutely, they can do it anytime they want. But their newspaper only comes out on Wednesday and Saturday. So it was assumed that one of those days would be when it was announced. They were ready to announce it already, and they wanted to, and now they're having to backpedal because there's only so many times you can say you're putting off a meeting, or only so many times you say you're going to vote and then don't. You know?
Yeah, of course. So
now they put out in their paper this last week, they said, look, we're waiting on the United States. They were finally honest about it. You know?
So do you think, or no, let's not, don't tell me what you think. Tell me what you know. And I know there are things that you are not allowed to say because of an NDA. So if you can't answer it, I understand. But we're only going to work on what you know. If it's your thoughts, then specify this is what you think. Will the currency revaluations of the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong, will they happen in the year of 2021?
There's 5 people, perhaps 5 or 6, that know a date, and it's fluid. I mean, it changes. We were supposed to have done this, Nick, a week ago, and that's when I brought up the thing about the Texas snowstorms and the 50 million people across the country being without energy. They ran the QFS system. It's been under testing for the last week or two. It's been proven in all tests highly successful of a transition of funds that they wanted to do. Not this week, last week, Thursday, Friday of a week ago, the Treasury our U.S. Treasury did 7 states and 7 major national bank tests where they released funds, it was about $16 million worth, to multiple recipients that were involved in the currency. And just to check out to see if it was going. And they intended to do it on Saturday, a week ago. And so it was supposed to happen last Saturday. The reason it didn't was because, as I was leading up to, and kind of take off on tangents, and I apologize for my ADD issues, but the point was they're not going to do this without Texas, and Texas was immobile. We couldn't move, you know. I was very lucky. I managed to keep my gas, electricity, and water. A lot of people didn't. 2 blocks down the street, they were without electricity for a week. It went off at 2 a.m. Sunday morning, and it stayed off until yesterday. And then a lot of towns in the surrounding area, even in the city, were channeling electricity every 30 minutes. They'd be on 30, off 30, on 30, off 30. The city of Keller was without water altogether. Their tower was shut down. They were borrowing what they could, but they couldn't enough to run the city. People were having to use bottled water and boil what they could. I even got a notice this week that we were supposed to boil water. So all that's to say that it was supposed to happen this last Saturday, actually. And so I know that they're keeping paymasters in place at the top levels. Huge, unbelievable, mind-blowing amounts of funds have been tranched into paymaster accounts. But they're not going any deeper than that I know of right now. Like I said, the people that got the test runs, they actually got money. There were some earlier whale types in the past that got some, we know the rates that I know the rates that they got, and I know what the bank's back screen rates were most recently. What they've shown, however, the back screen rates are off now. And there was one that popped up this week, just briefly, that had the Iraqi dinar over $10 street rate. And then it went off. And sometimes you have to understand those back screens are holding pattern fees, or not fees, but rates that they're just putting it in there to hold the spot until they actually do something. But that's the first time we'd ever seen a street rate that high. And, you know, we had heard rumor, this is rumor, that it could come out at around 15 plus.
Wow.
And that was what the original prime minister had said prior, you know, in previous speeches. Nobody believed him. And we don't know until it happens. I know the contract rates are a lot higher than that, but those were deals that China made with the U.S. And not what the normal street rate is, because they need the oil, and so they need Iraq's oil, and so they cut the deal with the U.S. To pay the contenders that knew about it and wanted it, and were in position and where to take advantage of those higher rates, so that they could strike the deals with Iraq to get their oil.
So wow, so that means that if you've got one Iraqi dinar and it goes to £15, you know, that could be I mean, that goes to $15. That will be 15. It will go for 15 times more, wouldn't it? So
Absolutely.
whatever you have in dinar, it would go 15 times more. How about the Vietnamese dong? Do you have an idea what that may be? What that could revalue to? Would it be one for one? Could it be 50 cents? Could it be $2-3? Whilst you're looking at that, I just want to tell the listeners that you can buy Vietnamese dong dinar at nasara.shop. The link will be below in the description.
Oh, that's okay. I'd already talked about that. There is some confusion, I will say, Nick, between Charlie's information about the codes already being in the QFS. We do know that it's running more like humming at a background with the SWIFT system. Right now, the SWIFT system will continue for about a year, because there are a lot of transactions that are ongoing that are using the SWIFT system that can't be interrupted. And so they have to keep that in place for those. However, all those of us coming in will be on the QFS system. I was always told over 20 years ago, even on the programs, that it would be paid with gold-backed dollars. And so until the gold-backed dollars are in place, and I did hear that we would get them prior to it being announced publicly, but it would be shortly after we got them that it would be announced publicly that we were, on a gold-backed dollar. And now it's worldwide. We know 209 countries and territories have signed off on it, and so that's all in place and ready to go. You were asking about Dong, and I got off track. I was going to mention the fact that Charlie's was saying that the codes are ready in the QFS. Well, yes. So technically the equipment is functioning. But in addition to that, and one thing he may not be as well aware of is that Michael Cottrell is in the gold treaty that's and that's verified by Interpol. I do know that, that he will be brought at the last minute, basically another laptop, and told to put in the codes that will be releasing the gold that backs all of this. So without those codes, we don't access.
Mm-hmm. So when, just before I ask my next question, do you want to tell me what you think that the Dong might go to?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It looks like, and I'm looking for that, but I got this other note in the board, and you were saying when. Everybody's trying to get ready to go by the middle of next week. Like I said, last Thursday, Treasury Department ran tests through the banks. They also went on through the early part of this week. Banks took a break, or had taken a break for a while, but they're gearing up now, and this is for next week. Iraq has a semifinal agreement with the Kurdistan, and they've had that for months. That is what they're telling people. They're scheduling a vote for this coming Thursday, which was postponed. They were going to vote today. They were going to vote earlier in the week. And for some reason, whoever the powers would be that I don't know, in Treasury and above, were stopping it. Partly because of the weather here. We know that because Texas couldn't do anything. And they know that they're waiting for the green light from Treasury. They are talking about a supplementary budget in Iraq in about 5 to 6 months to set a higher rate, a higher street rate, because the budget was set at $42 a barrel of oil. Right now they're at $65 a barrel. And in December they had 52 billion in reserves. Today they've got 57 billion in reserves. So they did vote. They're wanting to go public, but we can't, like I said, the U.S. says so. There were, like I said, about 50 million across the country that were without power here. Now then, back to the rate thing. Let me see if I can get the most current ones. They've hovered around the same for quite a while.
Is it going to be like a dollar or more than $1?
Well, hang on. Let me get them. Let me look through some of these here. That's too old. Okay. Dinar, around 365. There's also fluctuating rates depending on how much you have at various banks. And this isn't nationwide. This is individual banks that we know of, people who have been in and they were offered these amounts. 447, $6, $8 contract rates in the high 20s. There's even a treasury rate that I think you have to have like a code from somebody on high to access. And I don't have it. I don't know anybody at that level, but there are people that have them. Again, the rich get richer. Dong, that was your question. We've known people that got 47 cents, 57 cents, 87 cents, a $2.27 contract rate. And more recently, I've seen those in the $6 to $8 range. And there was even one person that was a whale that got 15 on his
So what would the general public get? The listeners
Well,
who are holding
it's going to be between that 47 and 227 for most. Um, Again, I've heard bankers even say this here locally. I can't speak for your country, but they say negotiation skills play a serious part. You have to understand that when we were able to get involved in all this, they never intended for the general public to be allowed to be a part of it. And there are some out there who are saying, like, we didn't design this for the toothless crackheads. And, what do you need with a bunch of, uneducated multimillionaires and billionaires doing out on the street? It scared them to death. And so they've been fighting that ever since. But the key to my point is be educated, know how banks work, understand how they make money, and negotiate based on that, because they're loaning out 9 to 10 times every dollar that you deposit, and they're making money on that. There were federal loans between the U.S. Treasury and the banks that overnight, that they were the overnight deposit rates, and the banks could get anywhere from 2 to plus 20% per night on those, Nick. And the general public doesn't know all that. And so all you really need to do is be able to say, look, I know how you make money. I'm not faulting you for making your money. You're welcome to do what you need to do to line your own pocket. I just want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And if you know what those rates have been given out there, it's like, well, what do we need to establish in order to arrange that same rate in my case? And it's going to be based on basically how you impress them and how much you've got. Obviously, the more you've got, money talks and everything else walks. And so, if you've got quite a bit and they want to be a part of that, they'll talk to you, because they don't want you going down the street. Mm-hmm. Of course, obviously, you're going to have to agree to leave a percentage of that with them. But we've had people get these high-end rates that didn't do more than 25, 30% of their total in commitment to that bank. And so that ain't shabby. And on the Zim, 11 cents to 22 cents per million. And a lot of people are out there buying $100 trillion notes. And so do the math on that one real quick. You're talking 11.22 million per 100 trillion note. And I've seen people get as high as 60. One case, 75. And so, again, it's how much you got and how much you're going to be able to look forward to. So, humanitarian projects are involved on those contract rates, of course. And again, it's based on how much you have. And, obviously, the more you've got, the higher the rate. So that right. Kind of gives you an idea, I hope.
Yeah, of course. So when these revaluations happen, are the people, is it safe for the people to go to the high street banks and change their currencies like you would do? Or is there a special place they have to go?
If you've only got a small amount, a lot of people I talk to don't have very much. They've just dabbled in it. You'll be able to go to a teller, at one of the major banks. And a lot of the regional banks, known as tier 2 banks here, the state banks, are involved as well. But they've all got different contracts with the Treasury here. I can't speak for your country. But Wells Fargo has the largest contract rate with the Treasury of anybody. And they're with HSBC, China's owns HSBC, and they've got 30% of Wells Fargo. But it'll all be through the QFS, so I don't think they're going to rob us like I might be afraid of otherwise.
But how will we know we're in the QFS?
Okay, well, everybody will be once it's turned on. And like I said, you're only going to be paid in gold-backed dollars. So until that is a fact, it's not going to release. I have seen here that the new rainbow currency is in some of the major banks across the country in vaults on pallets wrapped in shrink wrap, just waiting for the say-so to start going out. Now, you were alluding, I think, to communication through the 800 numbers. And those numbers will be given. There's like 5 or 6 gurus out there, and they're on the internet. Frank 26 is one. Bruce is one. I forget the name of his site. Of course, Frank went through a lot of medical issues lately. He's just focuses on the Iraqi dinar and nothing else. But I think he'll still get chosen for the 800 numbers. Bruce definitely will. If you're on Bruce's email list, he will send out notices that way. Let's see. There's Tony Renfro and his brother Ray. They will be getting the 800 numbers, and they've got a TNT site on Twitter. You can, and they will tweet it out. I think it's I don't remember what it is. It's the TNT _ TNT _ team, something like that. You can find it. Anyway, they will be tweeting out the 800 numbers. Of course, DinarRecaps.com is like a Reader's Digest of everything that's going on all week, and they will be posting it on Dinar Recaps. So if you get on their email list, it'll go out for sure, no problem. That would be the safest and most obvious one, I think, certainly. So
Right.
if you can't find any of the others, just go to DinarRecaps.com, sign up for the emails, you get all the notices. You have to understand it's a fluid situation. Some of that information is not accurate, but a lot of it is. And so it changes daily. Like right now, we're looking at the middle of next week. I'm not this week. Well, yeah, next week. Today's Saturday. So
I mean, I understand it could be disinformation to confuse the deep state, but you're saying that it could also be accurate. It could be next week as well. We just have to wait and find out and see, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Iraq announced Thursday is when they're going to have their next vote.
What I'm confused about is why would it happen under a Biden presidency?
Well,
because we want it to happen under a Trump presidency, so people can give the credit to Trump.
Yeah, and the money, the currency, and the programs, I was always told the programs would come out immediately prior to the announcement of Nassar. And so it's potentially possible that you could have the money come now and still get Trump back in office within the next few weeks, maybe. I know that we're looking for something big late March and around April 6th. I don't know the detail behind it. I just know that that's another spot on the calendar that they're focusing on. But at the same time, I keep hearing the money side of it moving forward. And I can't answer you beyond that, but I agree. The one thing we do know is until we go in and get the gold-backed dollars, and that'll be activated through the QFS system, that there won't be any transactions in fiat money. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. The SWIFT system. I have an account with a bank. I won't say which bank it is. But they've removed the option for SWIFT. In fact, I will tell you, it's Wirex. Wirex, Wirex Bank. I don't know if you've heard of Wirex.
I have heard of it, but I've never been in it.
They removed my SWIFT system. On the SWIFT, so I don't have a SWIFT IBAN number or anything like that. They've removed it.
Okay.
So now I just have it.
Only large transaction people even need them.
Sorry.
Are you a high roller, Nick?
I wish.
Yeah, I mean, most of the people that I talk to don't know anything about SWIFT.
Yeah, right. Okay. So yeah, no, I mean, SWIFT system, I mean, they're getting rid of it. I mean, but maybe they're getting rid of it slowly. Not that I use it. I don't use it, but I just noticed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I noticed it, that their option isn't that the Swift option isn't there. So when I go to access my account details, there's two options. There's the local and then there's Swift. My local is still there. Yeah, but the Swift, they've removed it. So I was thinking, something's happening. It was
There's a
just
lot
an
of signs.
observation.
There's a lot of signs.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that wasn't the banks when I mentioned the 7 states and the 7 major national banks that were used. That wasn't under the impetus of the banks. That was the U.S. Treasury that was doing that. And so they wouldn't be doing it if they weren't trying to do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been a
And then the
wonderful.
weather got in the way.
Sorry.
I said, and then the weather got in the way.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Why does the weather matter?
Well, because you can't go to a bank if you can't get out of your house.
But why? Well, why can't you wait the next day?
We were snowed in for a solid week.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, because you of the snow. Yeah. Now it makes sense. Right.
It's really the ice. I mean, people say everybody drives the snow, but why are you being such a wuss? It's not the snow, it's the ice. We get a coat of ice before we get the snow, and then we don't see the ice, and we just slide into everybody.
I see.
I had a history here. Maybe we want to do that on another recording or something.
Yeah, we could.
It goes back 450 years.
What the revaluations?
Well, no, the history of the banking system that began the creation of the Vatican Historical Asset Trust accounts, today known as the Global Collateral Accounts. And so I would say that would be for people that just really, the majority of the people go, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? When's it going to be? And we can't pinpoint that for you. They're not going to do that. It'd be too dangerous. But we know we're getting really close. And so I know that that's what most people are focused on. I had somebody ask me this week, I went to my bank and the banker told me the Zims weren't traded anymore. That's true. They haven't been traded in years. And they are totally worthless. But for some reason,
they're bonds.
I know that the leader of Zimbabwe met with Trump a few months ago, twice actually. And there, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to know what was said in there. But I think it had something to do with solidifying this exchange, or at least that being part of it. And it's the 2008 AA series notes that are going to be exchanged. And then, of course, the people that have the Zimbabwe bonds. But I don't know anything about those. That's on a different plane. But correct for people. 2008 AA series notes for the Zimbabwe notes are the only ones they're going to talk to you about. Usually 100 trillion and below.
Right. Well, Rod, listen, it's been lovely catching up with you, and thank you very much. And we should definitely do a part 2 of we go into details, and you can give also further updates in the currency revaluations. Maybe very soon. Okay.
Very good. It's been a pleasure, Nick, and hopefully I don't like bad weather anywhere, but don't y'all have a lot of gray weather over there in London?
Well, today's been actually not bad.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to plan a trip when it's the sunny time of the year.
Definitely 100%.
And we'll introduce you to some Texas barbecue and gourmet Mexican food.
Sounds amazing. You just let me know and I'm there.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, Rod. Bye-bye.